Okay.
Mhm. Okay, so please say something about yourself, starting with your name, where you are now, yeah, your age perhaps, if you like.
My name is Mark Winitsky, and I'm 64 years old, and I'm in my house in Los Angeles, California,
Mhm.
United States.
For the records, yes, and uh, I don't know. It is somehow maybe I should ask you that later on. But I know that you are a Gestalt therapist, but you also study psychoanalytic. I mean, you train as a psychoanalyst or
Yeah.
do this training, psychoanalytical training.
Yes. Um, I'm a marriage and family therapist in California, and I studied Gestalt therapy um, at the Pacific Gestalt Institute. I think I went maybe 4 times for their annual training here. In 2012, I was certified as a Gestalt therapist. And in that same year, I started a 4-year program in psychoanalysis.
Okay.
I got a PsyD, a doctorate in psychoanalysis, and became a psychoanalyst.
Mhm.
One of my supervisors as a psychoanalyst was Lynn Jacobs,
Uh-huh.
and another one was Donna Orange.
Uh-huh.
So I really went into psychoanalysis as a way of continuing my studies in um, phenomenology, contextualism, and the ideas about Gestalt therapy that I had gotten from the Pacific Gestalt Institute. It seemed like graduate school
Mhm.
for some of the same kinds of clinical ideas and work,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
philosophical ideas and work.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yes, I'd like to know more about it, but the order of the interview is I would first maybe ask you more about you as a person.
Sure.
Um, yeah, but I simply had that question in mind and couldn't retroflect for some reason. Maybe seeing those shelves with books. I don't know. Maybe this kind of background of your room, which is, yeah, I don't know. I had that kind of um, association with psychoanalytical room, if you like. I don't know.
I think all those books send a strong message. I was working in another room which had a background more like the one you're showing right now, which I was very comfortable with. But my wife could hear me going rum, 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 rum through the wall, and she asked me to move to this room, which I like, but it sends. I worked with somebody. One person said to me, I don't know, something about the books, and I said, "How is it for you to see all these?" They said, "I feel like every book has a diagnosis in it, and that's what you're thinking about."
Yeah.
But we talked about that, and it was okay. And another person, I saw someone for a first session, and on the second session, she said she had gone out and bought 30 books. So the setting that we do our work in, I found it really means a lot, and I tend to talk with people about it a little bit. But
Mhm, mhm.
overall, I've decided it's not having a bad effect on the work, but
If it
it
is,
does send,
if
you
it
know.
might be discussed, as long as it might be discussed, as long as it, yeah, as long as we stay curious.
I don't know, but it's a big. I mean, I've been in this house 33 years.
Mhm.
One of the whole house has changed except for that bookshelf, which was like this when I moved here, and we had to take it all apart and we put it back together exactly the way it was because I liked it so much. So
And now when I look closer, and I am not that much, I mean, generally I'm not intimidated by books. I like this very much. I mean, this image, but maybe I was, and now I can see a guitar there.
oh yeah, there is a guitar back there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is that is this eases me, or that, a bit, that makes me at ease, feel at ease.
It helps you. Does that have an effect?
Yeah. Mhm.
There's lots of things around,
Yeah, yeah. It's in this place. Hmm. Okay, so coming back to this question about how you would describe yourself in terms of your qualities, values, passions.
Mm. Well, that's a lot.
Mm,
I know that I'm very happy with my life right now. I mean, I love my work. I'm very happily married to another Gestalt therapist who you know because we did our other
mhm, mhm,
video. Um, I've got adult children. I was with online last night.
mhm,
Which is nice. Um, I've lived pretty much in the same place all my life.
mhm.
Lived very close to where I am. All 62 out of my 64 years, and I was born maybe 10 miles away, so it's still close.
Mhm.
Um, what kind of person? What are my passions? I'm curious. I like learning about things. Um, all of this still feels very fresh to me because I only went I went into studying therapy and things when I was 50 years old. When I was 49,
Hmm.
I finished my bachelor's. I went to college, back to college.
Wow.
Um, so it's been about um, having trouble with math. It's been about 15 years I've been completely doing this, but for someone my age, that's not very long.
Mhm.
Um,
Hmm.
it's I've never been busier in my life.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to start slowing down, but and I don't know what that says about my values, except that I really enjoy being active, being involved with things, learning, interacting with people, even though it's all through the internet now. We don't go anywhere. We haven't left the house maybe 3 times since March.
Wow.
We've with this COVID thing,
Yeah. 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 Hmm.
but I'm constantly interacting with people every day, 7 days a week. So um, values, I don't know. I'm horrified by what's going on in the country here in general, but also really inspired by some of the things.
Mhm.
I'm 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 glad there's been a lot of expression of dissatisfaction with longstanding things, going on here. Um, I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe you can guide me
Mhm.
toward what you're interested in.
So I am especially interested in what have you been doing, or what did you do until you're 50?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tie a little bit of it to Gestalt therapy. I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles in the 60s. I was born in the 50s, mostly was formed in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the hippie times.
Mm-hmm.
We had Charles Manson, was just up the street from where I was living with my father. And we um, had all kinds of things. And Gestalt, I mean, I don't know, reading Carlos Castaneda and, R.D. Lang,
Mm-hmm.
and interested in I think that was in the 60s, I don't know. But I mean, I was influenced by a lot of a lot of that wave of things, but it was also very scary. And a friend of mine's father was Arthur Janoff, who invented primal therapy, and he would be screaming with John Lennon, and this kind of stuff was going on. And I always stood back from it a little bit. I had long hair and, was in a band, but I didn't want to dive in like some of my more adventurous friends, maybe. And, the idea of Fritz Perls and Esalen was very scary. I know that was the end of the 60s. I went to UC Santa Cruz, so we would drive down to Esalen after midnight to use the hot tubs. And we would see naked adults walking around, which seemed very like outrageous, but it was fun. But I felt I was protecting myself from that kind of wildness most of the time. And I ended up, because of where I grew up and, family things, working in the film business. My father started producing films like when I was in college. He was a financial guy. And I went to Europe and worked on a movie when I was 19 or 20. I left college and never went back. So I worked in Yugoslavia, I worked in England. I came back here and worked on films, doing all kinds of different jobs. I cut hair sometimes. I made bombs for a war movie. I was an assistant director. I was an editor. I did lots of things in the films for like 30 years. Mostly I did film editing. And most of the time I was depressed. Most of the time I felt I was in the wrong environment. And at a certain point, I started going to a therapist. I guess when I was just about 30, a little bit younger than 30, 29, 30. And I went, and that was a psychoanalyst. I went for 8 years to someone where I laid on the couch, and I don't think it helped me at all. I went 4 times a week. He didn't like me, I didn't like him, and eventually I gave up. I went to another one, also a psychoanalyst, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and it was very good. I went 12 years, and either I grew up, he didn't stop me from growing up, I guess. things got much better. And he, a few times when I would say I didn't know what I could do, he said, "Oh, you could probably do what I do." And that gave me the courage to go back to school at 49, get a bachelor's, get a master's, and eventually get my doctorate. I met, I guess, in 2005. So I had been about a year. I probably was just starting my master's program. Someone invited me to go see a Gestalt therapy demonstration. And it was Gary Yontef. And my friend volunteered to work with him. And my friend is a very complicated person. It was a real challenge. But I liked the way he worked with her a lot. I'd never been to, I don't think I might have been to some conferences, I don't know, but I didn't know anything about Gestalt therapy. And I liked it, and I looked into it a little more. I started going to little workshops with Lynn Jacobs and other people from PGI. And then I signed up for that training, and I did that many years. And I think I went to their annual residential about 7 different years. And then I started going to AAGT conferences. The first one was in Puebla, 2012. That's where I met Consuelo, my wife, and her sister Marina. And
also my interest. Okay.
Yeah. We met at the conference. I hung out with the Mexicans. I hung out with Consuelo, her sister, her friend Abril, her friend Lucila, and another friend named Patty, and this gringo who was following them around. I remember I was sitting once with 7 Mexican women at a table, and Bud Feeder and Jack Allward walked by, and I said, "Do you want to join us?" And one of them said, "You're doing fine by yourself." They kept walking, but we ended up, Consuelo and I connected, very friendly there. I mean, we started
Mhm.
communicating, and she invited me to come visit Guadalajara, and I came down, and then I invited her to come visit Los Angeles, and
Mhm.
we became a couple pretty quickly,
Mhm.
and we got married 3 years ago.
Ah, okay. Mm.
Yeah, so that's been good.
Mhm.
And she and her sister Marina have been Gestalt therapists much longer than I have. So I learn a lot from them. I'm constantly in training. And they've been training people all this time for many years, so they know
Mhm.
they have a very different kind of a training program than the one that I came through too. So
Uh-huh.
it's it's like 2 years every week as opposed to 6 weekends
Yeah, yeah.
every year.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they really uh, refer to things in PhD very quickly, and they're like encyclopedias about
Mhm.
Gestalt stuff.
Mhm.
So it's good. I would say Gestalt sort of permeates my life in a lot of ways. I mean, it is like a running in the background. I guess it's like a philosophy. It's like it's like a secular religion almost.
Mhm.
And when I'm teaching at the Psychoanalytic Institute now, and I'm teaching in a couples and sex therapy program at UCLA,
Mhm.
but it's always through a Gestalt lens.
Ah. Uh-huh.
I'm always thinking about contact and you know uh, things as organismic self-regulation, field theory, phenomenology, dialogue. These basic concepts are always
Mhm.
going on, and they it it's an integrative way of looking at things, so you can really run anything through that, and it still works.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, if it's helpful if you're doing CBT, I think.
Mm. Yeah. 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 And kind of stopping you a bit before getting into the Gestalt more. I am still interested in this. Um, yeah, what happened then with your depression? To put it metaphorically, uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, and how to put it? And yeah, who besides your therapist, besides your psychoanalyst, influenced you in your life?
Well, I had I mean, a very, it is interesting how it's a fit between a person and the things that support that person.
Uh-huh.
You know, I
Uh-huh.
I was very influenced by my environment. I went into films because I could, because that's what ambitious people in my group of people did. If you didn't become a doctor or a lawyer, you'd go into the film business in general.
Mhm.
And there was something too straight and, you know, hardworking and closed-minded about becoming a doctor or a lawyer. I also had a father who really looked down on doctors and lawyers. Um, and I think that I had an interject about not wanting to be like that. So I had to be, I don't know what, freer somehow. And I think I followed the path of least resistance, which was also exciting, was to go into films where you'd travel and you'd do these adventurous things with very nasty people usually. Um, some of them were nice, but you're usually working for people who were very, and supporting an industry that's largely devoted to coming up with new ways to kill people for entertainment, things like that. And
Mm. Mm.
it felt bad, but I didn't know what was wrong, and
Mhm.
I didn't have good family relations. Um, I got a lot of support. Somehow I met a woman in 1983, 2, we started dating. No, 1984. And she became my first wife.
Mhm.
And she was very different. She studied folklore at UCLA, and she was an artist and was from a pretty poor family with lots of siblings.
Mhm.
And she was wonderful. She was a really wonderful woman. I was very much in love. We had 2 kids. She died very quickly after we had the kids,
Mm.
and that was, I started going to therapy when I was with her because I wanted to figure out what was, you know why I was so unhappy, what was wrong with me. And I thought we were going to have kids. I wanted to be a better parent. So that was a big support toward changing.
Mhm.
And then when she was gone, I had to cope with a lot of things.
Mm.
And that's probably was part of a push to become a therapist and not keep, doing the other stuff. Because I wanted to be around the kids. I didn't want to work as much.
Uh-huh.
So, um, I think, I remember when I started going back to school, I just loved the environment. I loved what people were talking about. They were sharing ideas. They were sharing ideas about social justice. They were talking about, I don't know, Foucault, whatever. And I didn't know there was a place, where I could sit around and talk with people about things like this and get involved in things like this.
Mhm.
And that I felt much more alive and much more at home. On a movie set, I would get in trouble if I stopped to talk with someone,
Mm.
you know, and and I was doing a lot of that. I was meeting people, I was learning other languages, I was, you know, making jokes with the extras in Serbo-Croatian and whatever. And it was fun up to a point, but
Mhm.
I don't know. So anyway, school was great, having a career of talking with people about what matters to them and
Yeah.
how to live in the world. And yeah. And I guess being able to just talk about whatever with a therapist for many, many years gave, gave me a sense that I don't know that there wasn't something horribly wrong with that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Something I liked is that I could go in and be terrible with him, and he would be there.
Mhm.
He could handle whatever. I'm a terrible patient. You would not want me as a patient.
Mm.
I'm a very, very bad patient.
Yeah, I sometimes imitate from or like to be modeled by my patients who are really bad to be as nasty for my therapist because I am always so yeah, such a nice person, such a kind, and yeah. So recently I've been experimenting with that nastiness.
Yeah. With nastiness as a patient or as a
Yeah,
therapist.
as a patient.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I have a friend who's a Polish friend who's a Gestalt therapist, and she always talks about she's serving tea to everybody.
Good. Oh, nice. Well, nicely
Yeah,
put. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. You mentioned this Polish Gestalt therapist, I mean, friend, once when we met some of this casual meeting. So she lives in LA or?
yeah. She's in Los Angeles.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For
she's
long?
from Gdansk.
Aha, okay. Yes.
Well, and after my first wife died, I married another woman, and she was Polish.
Ah, okay.
That's why I have all those little Polish words I throw out. And we raised. She had a daughter who is my daughter now, also, who was just here last week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we were together 10 years and we raised our kids together.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a Polish woman who was born in Russia and lived most of her life in Russia.
Yeah.
So she was sort of both. She was really Polish, though. They put her in a Polish school in Moscow or in Dubna.
Mhm.
and we spent a lot of time. We would go to Krakow in the summer with the kids, and they play in Park Jordana, and
Yeah.
we we've been to Poznan where her father lived, and been to Łódź and Wrocław and Międzyzdroje and Zakopane and all these places.
Oh, wow.
We-
Wow, wow.
We've
Okay,
been all over Poland. Yeah,
right. Mhm.
yeah. I like it,
Mm.
but and we were together 10 years. We split up, and then I don't know. I guess it was 5, 6, 7, 5 years later, I met Consuelo, and we got together.
Mhm. So it's somehow, if you describe yourself as a person, then I guess it's yeah, you are able to build a relationship, an intimate relationship. I don't know how to. Because
Your sound is breaking up a little. I'm sorry.
and there is some echo now. Can you?
I
Yeah.
can hear you now. Yes.
Um, yeah. So given your free important relationship, intimate relationship, I draw a conclusion that you are able to form a stable relationship, which is not so. I mean, yeah, throughout your life actually, because at different phases of your life, you had those long. I mean, yeah, not maybe the first one, but because your first wife died, but anyway. I mean, this is a quality for in my world.
Yeah. To form a stable relationship.
Yes, at different stages, at different stages. Given the biography you mentioned, given your story, or a bit about your family, this business, this environment, depression.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I come from a family with a lot of relational chaos.
Uh-huh.
So it's, you know, but I feel very lucky. I mean, I feel I'm in a very good relationship, which we work at. It takes work to
Mm.
have a good relationship, and you know, it's funny. We've been getting along much better since the COVID thing started. Not that we weren't getting along well before we were, but I don't know. It's much smoother now
Mhm.
for some reason. Yeah.
Mhm. Mm. Uh, mm. Yeah, and how to get now to start again. I don't
Okay.
know how to bridge to Gestalt. Maybe what made you search again for this psychoanalysis? I don't know. After Gestalt, I mean, I know that whenever you go now, you take your Gestalt lenses with
Yeah.
you, but uh, yeah, but you are still uh, yeah, looking around in terms of ideas.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I went to a university that was sort of devoted to social justice
Uh-huh.
and all kinds of diversity, and you know, I could say their mission is social justice. Is Antioch University in Los Angeles.
What's the name once again?
It's called Antioch. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay.
Um, I went from there to intern at a community mental health center because I was interested in narrative therapy. I don't know if you know much about narrative therapy, but you know, it's all about discourse. It's a social constructionist, you know, postmodern
Mhm.
approach. And I I got 2 years of supervision and training, largely organized that way, and I liked it very much.
Mhm.
I felt it was a little too dogmatic about
Mhm.
working with people in the world. Um, and there was something about Gestalt for me where I felt I could bring in my postmodern interests, social justice interests, psychoanalytic interests, aesthetic interests, whatever, and they would work.
Mhm. In
There
this
was
sense, you
room.
mentioned, you said earlier, integrative or whatever.
Integrative, yeah, yeah,
Integrative, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
very, yeah. I felt, yeah.
Okay.
It's like fundamental ideas about how experience is organized, or
Mhm.
how,
Mhm.
and I did a lot of work at that center and for years beyond, and up to now, with people involved with gangs,
Uh-huh.
with people from basically poor neighborhoods,
Mhm.
anger management groups, and groups of teenagers, again largely gang involved teenagers or people affected by violence.
Okay.
And I found that the Gestalt ideas fit very, very well, along with postmodern ideas, or narrative therapy ideas.
Mhm.
I I like that I can integrate. I've got a postmodern narrative therapy friend and colleague and former supervisor who he's interested, but he's pure about it,
Mhm.
But he is interested in the ideas. But and I've seen it at work. My wife and I led a group for a year in Watts, which was in Spanish. People who had been ordered by the court to do a year of anger management, where their kids had been taken away from the family,
Mhm.
wanting to get their children back, they'd be forced to do all kinds of therapy and classes and things,
Mhm.
which are very hard when you're trying to work and you're poor also, and you don't have your kids. But then it was a group with 30 people. But I got to watch her work, and it was very, very good. Being able to connect with people in a real way, to be very mindful of the context in which we were actually working,
Mhm.
as opposed to saying this is what I have to teach them or do
Yeah,
with them.
yeah.
It's like we were sitting in this room because their kids had been taken away, and because of they had, everything in the field was part of what we were aware of and working with.
Mhm.
And I think I think it went well, and it went well with what I'd been trained, you know
Mhm.
in the other context too.
Mhm.
um
But can I ask you about this field? I mean, as I understood, you are still involved in working with people from poor environments, in which it is we call some parts of I mean of Łódź as a city poverty ghettos. So anyway, you are still with low income people, or did I understand it right? Or
the sound is a little hard for me to understand. You're saying, was I working with low income people?
yes.
Yes. I was working at a community mental health center, and I still do some supervision, and I teach twice a year there.
Okay.
And they are designed to serve
Mhm.
people, who are I don't know, under resourced is one way of putting it. Low income is another way of putting it. Mostly people of color,
Uh-huh.
not all.
Mhm.
And then they opened a satellite center in a very poor neighborhood about an hour drive from where I live,
Uh-huh.
called Watts.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mhm.
and we've we worked there for a year. It was hard to drive an hour there, do a group, and then drive an hour back.
Mhm.
We didn't keep doing it, but I'm still connected with the program. The, I mean, the director of that program is a woman who was, when she was young, was in prison. She was a gang leader. She was very violent. She was my supervisor and one of my mentors, and she runs this big program, and she's a wonderful person and a good friend. And I learned a lot from her. I think, the two people I was following the most were her and Lynn Jacobs,
Mhm.
sort of at the same time.
Mhm.
And I learned different things, but I learned a lot from both of them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
with Marianne Diaz, that's her name. She and I co-presented in Monterey at the AAGT conference there on working with people affected by violence.
Okay. Mhm.
And it was a good, it was a small turnout, but it was a nice workshop. She couldn't stay. She felt very uncomfortable with everybody being white,
Mhm.
and left the next day,
Mhm.
which is not unusual. It's hard for her to I mean, she has to for work, but it's hard for her to spend a lot of time with people who are all white or
Mhm.
almost all white. Um, but she likes Gestalt. She has me talk about it, in as part of her program. It's organized more around narrative therapy, um, but uh, but she likes Gestalt and likes me to bring ideas in.
Mhm. Mhm. So as I understand, you are um, like when you say, how does your week, working week look like? So you work now mostly with individuals, or and they are from this. I mean,
Um,
they are. Mhm.
my work is mostly with individuals and couples. Um, I have mostly it's with West Los Angeles, upper middle class
Uh-huh.
people.
Uh-huh.
I have I have a number of clients who pay $5 or $10 a session, um, that I've been working with. Some of them a very long time. Some of them are relatively new. I I keep a certain amount of space in my private practice for that.
Mhm.
I'm working about 30 hours a week now with clients
Mhm.
online.
Mhm.
I'm teaching at Cal State Long Beach,
Mhm.
where I'm introducing. It's a counseling class. It's in a master's program, but it's introducing Gestalt therapy for 3 classes and psychoanalytic therapy for 3 classes.
Mhm.
Um, and most of the people there are people of color from lower income families.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's a large class, like 30 people,
Okay.
and they seemed to really like it last year, Gestalt especially,
Uh-huh.
because I could work in groups, do
Yes.
demonstrations.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to do online. I don't know how that's going to work, but we're doing it online this year.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I do some supervision of people working at that counseling center. I'm not working there
Mhm.
directly now.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm teaching one day a week or supervising and helping to teach in a program at UCLA, which is couples and sex therapy.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's a busy week, and because I don't leave the house, I'm working many more hours than I've ever worked as a therapist before.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, if I had to drive to the office or something, I
Yeah,
don't think I
I
could do
know.
it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The diary calendar gets more full. I mean, yeah. And um, so the social justice is somehow colonizing your professional life. You want it
You,
to be
you say
colonized.
colonizing it or organizing it?
Yeah,
Colonizing.
of course, organizing, but I'm, yeah. Uh,
It's it,
mhm.
it's. I mean, this happens with interns a lot. It starts out with social justice context work because you're working with poor people all the time, in those neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And then, I got my license. I started trying to make some money doing this, and it moved away from the emphasis on that. It's still something I'm supporting and I'm keeping, in contact with, but it's not what I'm doing every day, all day,
Yeah, yeah,
which it was when I was an intern. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's what I understood. But nevertheless, you still, yeah, maintain your contact with um, with this field, with this domain. You are supporting it somehow to grow. Maybe not that much directly anymore, but by
Yeah.
supervising, by teaching.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's, I feel it's important.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, that's why I'm. Yeah, I feel you feel somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm, mm, mhm,
Yeah.
uh,
It,
mhm,
it was very helpful at learning how to work with difference too.
uh-huh,
Working, I mean, it's funny. I talked about when I was young, Gestalt seemed wild and scary, as did Est, which was a big thing back then, and other things like this. When I came to this counseling center, working in an anger group
mhm,
with gang members
mhm,
was like a very scary thing. And I went in, and once I got to know the people, I loved it.
mhm,
I loved it, and I loved there was a way of connecting that seemed less false and more exciting, more
uh-huh,
present a lot of the time. Um, and there were different kinds of value systems, and you know that people were living by, and it became one. It was very exciting. The novelty was very enlivening. To, I guess, try to use the jargon, and also I found that when I'm encountering other kinds of difference, I've developed some skills to listen better, to stay with it, to try to put myself in, you know a certain kind of inclusion,
mhm,
and a certain trust in what the other people were doing.
mhm,
And I don't know if this would have happened if it hadn't been, if I hadn't been working with Marianne Diaz, who was of that world and still is of that world.
mhm,
I mean, as the head of this program, she would say, "I am a gang member." She wouldn't say, "I was a gang member." She'd say, "I am a gang member,
mhm,
and I'm a nonviolent gang member."
uh-huh,
You
mm,
know, and it really. I feel very lucky that I was able to uh, to train in that place.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm. And it feels so so important. Um, I mean, they've been lucky. This is what I want to say also.
What?
They've been lucky. I mean, those people you worked with, in sense of not only complimenting you specifically, but that they had that help provided. That is, um,
It it's the kind of meeting that I wish there were more of in our society, or in the world, where it's not it you know it I don't know. There's a certain kind of mutual respect that can develop. Uh, I don't know, but I just
hmm,
I enjoyed not being afraid of things that used to scare me.
mhm,
That was a big part of it. Not being afraid of people who used to seem scary to me.
yes.
You know.
Yeah, as I said, I can feel it because this resonates in me now in Poland when the society is so much divided. It's been divided, yeah, for years. I don't know, since at least 1989, when the changes started. I mean, transformation started, and beneficiaries of the transformation and those who lost, so winners and losers, that
Yeah.
thing, and then it went worse and worse. And I am coming from yeah, an environment where I used to live with people who are now maybe scary for some people when they are encountered in the street. I don't know when they are and yeah, I don't know. I had it is not that possible here. I mean, not so many systemic thinking of how to work, how to how to meet, in fact, not only work and provide our enlightened knowledge, but how to meet simply, how to yeah, get into dialogue, mm,
have to be influenced by each other.
how to be influenced by each other. Because yeah, there is some, youngster um, energy calling in me, inside me. Because as a young person, I was, playing basketball all my days, not really reading books. That started a bit later. But yeah, and I was surrounded by, by children from low income families all the time. And so, yeah, I feel this kind of, I don't know, gap now. Now I have become so privileged living, meeting only people from certain circles.
Are there big class differences in Poland?
Very, yeah, very much. Yeah, this is the most, I guess. I mean, now I've been for the last 2, 3 years been involved in this LGBT sector more, but the issue, I mean, in terms of intersectionality, class is the very crucial factor, if not the most. I mean, critical within the Polish society. Mm,
It's interesting what happened after communism. I mean, my ex-wife's father was born on a farm. They're all working as, raising pigs and things, and he became a nuclear physicist.
ah,
But that was part of the program
yeah,
of
yeah,
the government
yeah, yeah.
to make farm people into physicists and things. And he but that seems to have gone away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But not that that society has progressed from there much. I mean, as in the US, there are some strong waves of regression, no,
Yeah.
in different levels. So,
Yeah.
mm. Uh, yeah, so anyway, thank you for sharing all that, because yeah, I enjoy it, even though it's touching. I mean, I feel my voice is trembling, because these are important and sad, depressive somehow issues,
Yeah.
I guess. Mm.
It's funny. I feel almost a little. I don't want this to be virtue signaling. I'm saying I work with poor people sometimes. I live a very privileged life. I live in a wealthy neighborhood in a rich city in a rich country,
Mhm,
and I take advantage of all of those things.
mhm.
And I want to acknowledge that. I give a little bit. I notice what's going on, but I'm not doing nearly what many people are doing. And
Mm,
um, I
mhm.
I feel like I want to put a footnote on,
Yes. Okay.
talking about working
Yes.
with
Yes.
people who are struggling with
Yeah.
oppression.
Yeah. I understand. And I can say the same thing about myself, that some people could uh, consider me, I am now describing you, or giving credit to you. And I would say the same thing in response.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so maybe let's continue with the questioning.
Okay.
One more thing is about Gestalt community and the sense of community. Do you feel there is
I,
a community?
I'm feeling it here right now.
Thank you.
I I feel it much more with AAGT, I would say, than anywhere else.
Mhm.
And it comes and goes. I mean, it's a bittersweet thing for me because you
Uh-huh.
get
Uh-huh.
You've had, tremendous highs and, some big lows.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I don't know. The Gestalt, I find the Gestalt community world very unpredictable, sometimes unreliable,
Mm.
and I don't know. I've met some wonderful people. I like the international community.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
you know,
And what's next? Do you think? What's the future of our getting into community of Gestalt therapy per se? What do you think? This,
I, I don't know where it's going. I mean, in Los Angeles, it seems like it's barely hanging on.
uh-huh,
People come in, they get some training, and they leave.
uh-huh,
They usually like the ideas, but we don't. I don't feel like we have a community here. It's not like we don't have a clinic.
uh-huh.
We don't have. We have sort of boutique training
Hmm.
organizations. That are great at what they do, but I don't. There was a place that started as like a clinic around Gestalt, and it sort of moved away from Gestalt and into just basic community stuff.
Uh-huh,
It's funny. They became disenchanted or disconnected with Gestalt.
uh-huh. Here in Los
Los
Angeles.
Angeles, yeah, yeah.
Ah, uh-huh,
But I don't know. I don't know what the future is. I'm feeling old enough that I'm not. I'm watching to see what people are going to do to make the future.
okay.
Feel-
I
I
heard
don't-
that answer once when already.
Hitting my mid 60s, I'm starting to feel like the future isn't my problem anymore.
Oh.
I don't know if that's fair. That's just laziness, maybe.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would love to see Gestalt grow and spread and become more of the fabric of our culture, in our society. I don't see, I don't really see that happening, you know.
Hmm. Mhm. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, we will be ending up. How are you doing? Was it okay for you, the interview?
Yeah, it was nice talking with you.
Mhm. Yeah, I am happy that yeah we could set up this time, and hmm, I appreciate, and it was also inspiring for me. Mhm. Um, private reasons also. Hmm. So thank you, and have a nice afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still morning here.
Ah, yeah. so, so
It's the
yeah,
first time of my day here. Yeah.
and I will send you a video in a minute. So you will tell me.
Thank you, Camila.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and do widzenia.
Do widzenia.
Bye.